All right, so today's question is one that I actually have to clarify because the question in and of itself has some elements of it that are not completely accurate. And so I want to explain it, but the reason I want to answer it is there is some more connection than maybe you would realize on the surface. So the question is this: what part did Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego play in the life and ministry of Jesus? Okay, so here's the part I have to clarify is first, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were Old Testament, or we learned about them in the Old Testament, so they were not around during the life and physical ministry of Jesus here on earth. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were Jewish boys who were raised in a Babylonian culture because of Babylon. The army conquered them, exiled them, so they were raised in that environment. At one point in the Babylonian history, the ruler of the time decided that all people should pray and worship him, and anyone that didn't would be thrown into a fiery furnace. And so Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego held on to their integrity and their character, even though it would cost them their life. And they said a powerful, powerful statement, one that all of us should live by. They told the ruler, they said, our God is able to save us. I mean, they had absolute faith, but they said, but even if he doesn't, we will not worship you. And that is the most beautiful example of faith and prayer, is that we can say to God, I believe you can, but I trust you if you don't. And that was really what their heart is our God can save us, no question about that, but even if he doesn't, we're going to hold faith and not worship a false God. And so when they were thrown into the fiery furnace, all three of them went into that fiery furnace, but as all the spectators and the king looked into that furnace, what they saw was another person. They actually saw four figures who were not being burned up. And it caused them, obviously, there was some amazement, curiosity with this. And they looked in, but as they looked in, what they said is that fourth character looked as if he was the Son of God. And what they were just saying is, in essence, a spiritual being. And many suspect that that was absolutely Christ in the Old Testament, that this was an example of, see, in the New Testament, when Christ became man, his name was Jesus, but Christ revealed himself many times in the Old Testament, and so that could have absolutely been him. It could have been an angel, but most likely it was Christ in that fiery furnace with them, protecting them. And then as the story goes on, they walked out of the fiery furnace without not even a hair on their body singed. They did not smell like fire, so it did not touch them. So the question was, what part did they play in the life and ministry of Jesus? I would say technically they didn't play a part in the ministry of Jesus physically here on earth, but they were still part of the ministry of Christ. So I hope you can understand how I'm differentiating between those two. But they were part of the ministry because they showed, one, what real faith looks like, even if it costs someone their life. And then they showed also, in their faith was honor, that God and Christ himself came and protected them and saved them from the fire. So that was a part of his ministry. So they are, though they were in the Old Testament, just as all the characters of the Old Testament foreshadowed and pointed toward Christ, they were part of that ministry. And even now, our lives, we all point back toward Christ, and who is still alive and well and in heaven. So that answer hopefully answers your questions. Feel free to comment below.